What if I told you there are places in the world where people regularly live into their 90s, and even past 100, not because of supergenes, supplements, or biohacks, but because of how they eat, move, and live every single day? That's the work of Dan Buettner, longevity researcher and founder of the Blue Zones. For decades, he's studied the longest living populations on Earth, not in labs, but in real villages, kitchens, and communities. And today, we're cutting straight to the most practical part of all that research. The top 5 foods these long-living people eat on repeat, and why they matter more than almost anything else you're doing for your health. Stick with me, because the last one might surprise you. Life expectancy versus human potential. Let's zoom out for a second. Right now, the US is heading toward nearly 50% obesity rates. And here's the wild part: based on our biology alone, most humans with average genetics could live into their mid-90s. But instead, US life expectancy hovers around 80 years. That's 13 to 14 years of potential life just gone. And it's not just about living longer, it's about how we live at the end. People who die in their 60s often spend 8 to 9 years dealing with chronic disease and disability. Centenarians in blue zones? On average, only about 9 months of serious illness at the very end. That's called compressing morbidity, and it's the real goal. Reframing the goal of living to 100. Dan Buettner says living to 100 isn't a promise, it's an aspiration. Realistically, early 90s is achievable for many people alive today. Since 1840, life expectancy has increased about 2 years per decade. If that trend continues, future generations get bonus years. But here's the key shift: longevity isn't luck. It's more like training for a marathon. You don't wake up at 85 and decide to be healthy. You build it, day by day. Where the blue zones came from. Originally, there was no such thing as a blue zone. Researchers just kept noticing the same places popping up in scientific papers, areas with unusually high numbers of centenarians. Like Sardinia, Italy, especially among shepherds. Loma Linda, California, home to Seventh-day Adventists. Dan Buettner teamed up with National Geographic, circled these regions in blue ink on maps, and the name stuck. Eventually, 5 blue zones were identified: 1. Sardinia, Italy. 2. Loma Linda, California. 3. Nicoya Peninsula, Costa Rica. 4. Ikaria, Greece. 5. Okinawa, Japan. Different cultures. Different cuisines. But the same patterns kept showing up. Health outcomes that defy modern trends. These people don't just live longer, they stay healthier longer. In Ikaria, dementia rates are dramatically lower than in the US. Meanwhile, dementia rates here have nearly doubled in recent decades. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia. Different diseases, but largely the same root causes. One of the biggest differences? Far fewer ultra-processed foods. Much lower reliance on animal-heavy diets. Is it really about personal responsibility? Now, let's be real for a second. Yes, health is theoretically in our control. But in practice, many people live in food deserts. Unhealthy food is cheaper, louder, and everywhere. Kids are marketed sugar before they can read. This isn't a moral failure, it's a food environment problem. Our agricultural system subsidizes commodity crops, which turn into ultra-processed food, which turns into massive profit. It's like the boiling frog analogy: this didn't happen overnight. Food and movement environments matter. Back in 1980, obesity rates were lower. Diabetes was rarer. People moved more without trying. Not because of discipline, but because the environment demanded it. Blue zones don't rely on willpower. They rely on design. What do people in blue zones actually eat? Here's where it gets interesting. Yes, there's alcohol. Yes, there's coffee. And no, these diets weren't trendy or restrictive. Dan Buettner and his team reconstructed 100 years of eating patterns using historical dietary surveys. The result? 90 to 95% plant-based. Not vegan. Not perfect. Just consistent. The top 5 foods of longevity. These are the foods that show up everywhere in blue zones. 1. Whole grains. Wheat in Sardinia. Rice in Okinawa. Corn in Nicoya. Grains aren't the enemy, they're the foundation. 2. Greens. Cultivated greens. Wild greens. Bitter greens. Loaded with micronutrients and anti-inflammatory compounds. 3. Tubers. Especially sweet potatoes. In Okinawa, purple sweet potatoes were once the main calorie source. 4. Nuts. A handful a day, almonds, walnuts, pistachios, whatever's local. 5. Beans. The cornerstone. If there's one non-negotiable, it's beans. Black beans. Lentils. Chickpeas. Fava beans. About 1 cup per day is associated with up to 4 extra years of life expectancy. 4 years. From beans. Let that sink in. Other longevity factors, quick hits. Moderate alcohol, usually with meals. Strong social connections. Daily low-intensity movement. A sense of purpose. Food matters, but it's part of a bigger picture. Let's clear up some myths. Beans and gout? Not an issue for most people, plant purines behave differently. Grains cause inflammation. Whole grains are consistently linked to lower inflammation. Sweet potatoes and kidney stones? Only relevant for specific medical conditions. And yet, some people have autoimmune or medical exceptions. That matters. This isn't dogma. It's guidance. Final takeaway. Blue zone diets aren't about perfection. They're about patterns. Mostly plants. Real food. Eaten daily, for decades. You don't need to live in Sardinia. You just need to eat like someone who plans to. If this helped, stick around, because longevity isn't a trend. It's a lifestyle. And it starts on your plate. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel.